Hi there. We are coming to you from Taipei in Taiwan. Taiwan is a tiny island north of the South China Sea, separated from China by the Taiwan Strait. There are cables running under this strait that provide internet connectivity, and there's always been a lot of trouble, hasn't there, E-ling, with cutting these cable. E-ling, by the way, is the executive director at Amnesty International Taiwan. And I raise this because it's in the news today. The New York Times has it as their lead story. How often is the internet cut by the Chinese in the Taiwan Strait?
I'm not so sure, but we can saw it on the news quite often.
Yeah.
So it happens all the time. It's not just yesterday or
Yeah.
So I think we can hear there is also a session in the RightsCon talk about this issue, and the National Security Bureau is also mentioned that is a national security issue. And from the human rights perspective, we think that might be also a human rights issue because that cuts the connection, the telecom connection and internet access between the Kinmen and the Machu. Those are the small island. Between Taiwan and China.
Did you even
It's
know
very
that
aggressive.
there
I
was,
didn't know.
that there were so many, like we think about Taiwan as an island, but there are islands
Yeah,
of
some
Taiwan.
small, yeah.
And how does it, like, you talk about as a human rights issue, this cutting of the cable. Like, do you think that access to the internet is a human right?
Sure. I think it's also because currently the internet space is a very important way for the ordinary people to access for information.
Yeah.
And also it's a space for us to express our opinions,
Yeah.
our
views.
thoughts.
Yeah.
So it's also an important space for our freedom of expression. So if we don't have the access to internet, that would be a huge impact to Taiwanese.
So in Taiwan, you had your first general elections, open, free, democratic elections in 1996.
Yes.
Obviously, before then, Taiwan was under martial law for a long period of time.
Yes.
Tell us about what it's like to have China as such a powerful neighbor, because China obviously isn't a country known for its human rights.
Yeah, but also because of the very long period of martial law and white terror period in Taiwan. And so I think for Taiwan, I think we are still going through towards to become a more mature democracy country. And so when we talk about human rights, digital rights here, I think it's not a very common discussion in the civil society or in because many people will maybe persuade the convenience of technologies, and so they don't aware that there are also human rights risks or surveillance issues if we misuse this technology. So and under the threat of China, I think they will help people to have a more thought and considering what's the potential dangers and risk about when we didn't properly use those technologies.
I think Nell and I both want to ask you questions, which is partly because we are here largely because we are here in Taiwan. One of the things that came out very clearly from the opening ceremony, I don't know whether you were there at RightsCon, when you had the Vice Premier and the Vice President talking really quite passionately about not just Taiwan's, sort of experience and kind of power from technology, like it's the chips and all of the, but also their strong commitment to democracy and technology. And I think this interplay between how technology and democracy together are so intertwined in Taiwan's national identity.
Sure.
Talk to us a little bit about that. Like, what does it mean, in a world where human rights are under threat, in a world where democracy is under threat, to have such a commitment. I'm sure there are many critiques that you have as well, but such a like public commitment to both democracy and technology.
Sure, I think most of the civil society here will be welcome those opening remarks from our Vice President Xiao Meiqing and also the Vice Premier Zheng Lijun. We also have a demand, a joint statement from the Taiwanese civil society about the digital rights.
Oh, what does that say? Tell us about that.
It's a lot. Like also currently we have a draft on the artificial intelligence.
Yes.
So we look forward because this draft is still very broad and it's not have a more concrete regulation or any assessment about the risk of AI implementation.
Yeah.
So we want. And also it's still a draft. It didn't submit to the parliament yet. So we look forward we can have more discussion and also because we already see that the AI Act in EU and also a lot of guidelines in the UN. So maybe we can refer to all these international standards, and also I think Amnesty International have a lot of recommendation about how to make a good regulation from the human rights perspective to ensure the human of expression and also to ensure that our access to those new technologies was fit to the international human rights law.
Online hate speech against minority groups, Indigenous Taiwanese groups, and LGBTIQ groups as well, is a big concern for people all over the world. How does it affect people in Taiwan?
I think in our young generation, we have a youth team in Amnesty Taiwan. They do a lot of interview with the high school students about how the hate speech toward the indigenous communities was impact their life. And years ago there is also a high school student, indigenous student committed suicide due to the online bullying.
Really?
And also there also happens a hate speech towards the LGBTI person in the universities as well. So all this still happen, and we still don't have a very clear policy or regulation about how to deal with these issues. So yesterday in our roundtable with Tech Team and Meta and our NCC, the National Communication Committee, we also talk about this and see what could be further addressed and provide some effective remedies for those vulnerable and marginalized communities, not only in Taiwan, but also like the Rohingya people in Myanmar or the Tigray people in Ethiopia or the LGBTI groups in Thailand and also the Philippines, LGBTI people in Philippines.
Apart from your work with Amnesty International, you're also a board member for the Human Rights Network for Tibet and Taiwan. What do those two countries have in common as far as digital rights, human rights?
Both Tibet and Taiwan is not considered as a country under the UN system, and also it faces a lot of threat and pressure from the PRC government. So on the digital rights perspective, I think we also survive a lot of like the cyber attack and also surveillance issues from the Chinese government. So I think in the previous investigation report conducted by Amnesty International, we also revealed that there is a lot of spyware used by many government to monitoring the activists and journalists or lawyers, human rights defenders. But they also find out the president of Taiwan is also one of the target by those
Really?
spyware.
By the spyware.
Yeah.
Do we know who is the where the spyware comes from?
It's from Israel.
It's from Israel.
Pegasus.
Yeah,
Is it?
but who is the
It's
customer?
another one. Yeah, they buy this.
Who is they?
the multiple governments, so like the Russia government and the Iran government, the Vietnam
spying on Taiwanese.
Not only the Taiwanese, but their own,
people.
they are their own people, like overseas or exiled activists. But we find that maybe they are the Taiwan, the current the president at that time was also targeted by the spyware.
Wow. So you have presidential classified information that is in the hands of an opponent.
Yeah, I think they know that.
Wow. And what about civil society? How about civil society here? Like, is Amnesty International or the organization that you're on the board of, are you concerned about human rights defenders and journalists here in Taiwan, about their safety and security from an information perspective?
Like when we have a RightsCon here, I think there are also many activists from Tibet, from Uyghur, from Hong Kong. They attend this event, and sometimes they still have to worry about whether it's safe here. Although we do have a police or all kinds of
security.
But we when we talk about the transnational repression issues, like there's also many sessions talk about that. Sometimes it's not easy to define is that a crime, because if they just took picture to you and they didn't do any physical attack or something, then can we just report this to the police? I think so the TNR issue is still a very new technique from the PRC government to they use this way to crack down the civil societies or the exiled activists. So I think there should be more understanding about how they using this method to harass the human rights defenders outside China.
Amnesty International put out a statement in opposition to the use of the death penalty recently. Last month, there was a prisoner who was executed without some of the basic human rights under the UN. Like life, yeah. Well, also alerting his family to what was going to happen. It was a very quick and unjust process, according to Amnesty International. Is that something high on the list of concerns as far as Taiwanese democracy goes at the moment?
Well, yeah, I think because we
how did that happen?
How did that happen?
Why did that happen?
We don't know what's the reason why this execution was why this case, and also why the timing. But I think the death penalty is a huge debate, and so the abolition is not supported by the majorities in the civil societies, and also the current
leadership.
Or the political parties. But the overall, you will see that the global trend, there are more than third of quarter of the more than 140 country already abolished the death penalty. But in Asia, there are still some keep the execution and death penalty. And Taiwan, if we consider us as like a human rights and democracy country in this area, and compared to PRC, we want to do better. Then I think there should be a different.
Well, thank God for Amnesty, because one of Amnesty's central tenets is about the abolition of the death penalty. Sure. And so, but on the flip side, which is, not to compare them at all, the sort of severity of it, I think Taiwan was also the first country in Asia to enable same-sex marriage.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about that as a human right.
Sure, I think that is very progressive step for Taiwan, and also after that, we see that Thailand, Nepal is also following the Taiwan step and legalize that. So we look forward there will be more legalization, like in South Korea, in Japan, in Hong Kong as well. But in Taiwan, after legalize of same-sex marriage, the transnational same-sex couple can get registration is
Oh.
they wait for another year, and then and also for the Taiwanese and Chinese same-sex couple, I think they face another issues.
battle.
Yeah, because due to the threat of China, and the government keeps saying that's will be a national security issue. So far they are still, they cannot just register the same-sex marriage in Taiwan.
As yet, yeah. But still, there's a bright future, hopefully, and there's a lot of work to do. And
Sure.
I mean, just thinking about the future of Taiwan, and it's sort of, I mean, I don't know if this is exactly in your wheelhouse. I'm sure you have personal opinions on it, but like, there's also an article in yesterday's New York Times that talked about the U.S. government's position on Ukraine, and what does that mean for the U.S. government's position on Taiwan's independence? Are people more scared? Are people thinking about this seriously? What are the conversations that are happening on the street?
Well, we see a lot of change after Trump get the take the regime, and there are a lot of impact. I think also when they cut the U.S. aid, it's also influenced a lot of programs in the Asia Pacific, including some programs in Taiwan as well. So for us, I think it's also will be a big issue on human rights and humanitarian crisis. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, E-ling. It's been amazing talking to you, and thanks for giving us a sense of what it's like to be an activist here in Taiwan at this present time.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time.
No, click.
Thank you so much.
Well done.
Thank you for your time.
Yeah, that was great.
It's really important for us to speak to you.
Yeah.
We also spoke to a woman from the...
It's uploading. That's good.
It's uploading, yeah.
Just
it stopped.
Yeah. I think it's just having trouble because it's a little low battery maybe.
Cool. Picture.
Yes.
Yes.